Both unbearable and essential. That's the Guardian newspaper's review of Exhibit B, which is described by the Barbican Arts Centre as a work of performance art which critiques the human zoo and ethnographic displays that showed Africans as objects of scientific curiosity through the 19th and early 20th centuries. It's translated here into 12 tableaux. Each features motionless performers placed in settings drawn from real life. Collectively, they confront colonial atrocities committed in Africa, European notions of racial supremacy, and the plight of immigrants today. But Exhibit B was never staged in London. The Barbican decided to cancel the performance art due to a protest that was taking place outside. Exhibit B has already travelled throughout Europe, and the reactions to the performances have been mixed, but wherever it went, Exhibit B sparked some sort of protest. The demonstration in London forced the Barbican to cancel the piece. It's scheduled for New York, Paris and Moscow this evening. Joining me to discuss the issues surrounding Exhibit B and the withdrawal of the performance piece from the Barbican is Lee Jasper, a race relations activist in London who joined the campaign to prevent the Barbican Arts Centre from showing Exhibit B, and Manik Govinda, head of Artists Advisory Services and a curator and writer. I'll start with you, Lee, because you were a member of the group who petitioned to prevent Exhibit B from being performed at the Barbican. How did the protest in London arise?
It arose through the actions of a petition that was started by Sarah Myers, a young African woman from Birmingham, who felt that Exhibit B was offensive and in a one multicultural democracy like Britain, that the show was both offensive and denigrated African culture rather than was a bulwark against racism. And having established a petition which attracted well over 20,000 signatures, the movement was born.
And you yourself took part in the protest. Can you tell us a bit about what happened?
Yeah, well, we had the protest began with writing letters to the Barbican, asking them for meetings with the Barbican's board, attempts to meet with the African actors involved in the Exhibit B, which was denied, more letters to the Barbican, a lobby of the City of London, which is the funding corporation, the main funder for the Barbican Arts Centre. And eventually, as a last resort, after those discussions had failed to produce a result, a picket that was held outside on the opening night of Exhibit B down there in Elephant and Castle.
Now, and obviously, because of the reports, we know that the show was cancelled, and the Barbican issued a statement explaining why. Just describe to us why people were there protesting in London.
Well, I mean, I think there's certain things that one has to understand in relation to why people were so motivated around this matter. One, I think that Britain as a country has just is far more advanced in understanding racism than most other countries in the world, especially the kind of subtle neoliberal racism that poses itself as an open democracy and yet has a sort of hyphenated citizenship for black and ethnic minorities members of that society. I think secondly, there is the reality that the issues that it gave rise to, the issues of slavery and colonialism, these are all been part of a broad movement to secure both an apology for slavery and a recognition and reparations for slavery that have not been met. And the view is that these our ancestors are not some sort of dry, dead relics of our historical past, but are actually live beings, part of the world in which Africans inhabit. And in relation to that, there was the issue that the Barbican being 99% white, the City of London being 99% white and 100% Tory, who elect 15 members of the 20-strong Barbican board, in conjunction with a white artist from South Africa, have determined what they think is anti-racism in a modern London. And it was found to be wanting, it was found to be unacceptable, and it was found to be inoffensive.
I think having read around certain articles and reviews of the exhibition, I think the makeup of artistic boards is a topic we could return to. I think I'd just like to bring Manik Govinda into the conversation now. What was your take, Manik, on the decision by the Barbican to stop the performance, which was as a direct result of the protest?
Well, I did have a ticket to go and see Exhibit B on the Saturday that it was due on. Obviously, I was denied that right to see the performance because of the protest and the subsequent closure. Now, I don't think the Barbican would have closed this performance lightly. Without a doubt, the police must have exerted pressure on the Barbican under the risk assessments of public safety and the safety to the performers. And there is a video, not by mainstream media, that clearly demonstrates that the police took sides with the protesters, and the Barbican's hands were tied. They had no choice but to cancel the run of this performance.
The Barbican had no choice, in your opinion, to cancel the performance. As someone who had a ticket to see that performance, first of all, tell me why you wanted to see it.
Well, I work as an artist producer. I work with artists creating challenging, risk-taking work, sometimes provocative, sometimes controversial. And I know of Brett Bailey's work. I've never seen it directly, so I really wanted to know what this piece was about. And I think for me, as a campaigner also, I believe in artistic freedom, in the right for the artist to express through art what he or she wants a public to experience. So that right for us as the paying audience, that right was denied. We were denied an opportunity to see, hear, and attend this performance piece.
Lee Jasper, having heard then from Manik, I'm sure you've heard a lot of the arguments about its censorship. Is there any way you see it from an artistic viewpoint, or is it purely centred on the issue that it's a racist exhibition?
I think what you've got to take into account is the context of this exhibition. First of all, the Barbican could have chose to put that play on in a venue that it could have run very easily all week. Why it choose to put that exhibition on in a subterranean vault in the middle of a tunnel in the middle of Eltham Castle gives you part of the explanation why the demonstration was viewed in the way it was. It was a tunnel, it was loud, it was amplified, and the Barbican and the vault, funnily enough, actually having agreed with me where the demonstration ought to be placed, then rearranged the barriers without consultation and put them virtually right outside their own front door. So they've got a lot to responsibility to take. I think the other thing is around this violence. Nobody was arrested, no charges were made, no complaints of violence were made, no laws were broken. The demonstration was noisy and voluble and dynamic, but other than that, it was completely within the law, which is why no arrests were made. I think on the issue of rights and the rights of freedom of speech, we didn't censor Brett Bailey. The Barbican chose not to put that show on. In fact, the show in the UK had been seen in Edinburgh, and presumably they could have chosen another venue to put it on where they could have organised themselves in such a way that a demonstration wasn't capable of closing it. There was incompetence on that part. There was incompetence on behalf of the Barbican. In the most multicultural city in the world, our major world-leading art centre has no relationship with London's black communities in order to ensure that the issue of contentious artwork, which has been admitted by all, even those who haven't seen it, that this is a deeply contentious artwork, is informed, their decision to take those pieces of artwork is informed by the view of over 40% of London who are black and ethnic minorities. They don't have that relationship. and therefore an all-white board run by a Conservative administration, funded by them, made a error in procuring this work without consultation with the black community, and certain people wish to blame the black community for exercising its democratic right to protest as being the major sin here. Well, we don't buy that. The sin lies with the absolute failure of the Barbican to have any credible, sustainable, long-term relationship with black community organisations and black and ethnic minority arts organisations in the capital. Had they done so, they would have heard an informed view about this piece prior to procuring it, which could have avoided what has turned out to be a major issue for the Barbican itself.
Do you think then that had the Barbican opened up a dialogue with yourselves when you offered letters and approached them for meetings, that you would have still championed the boycotting of this show? Because you've got
this show is no Anne Frank exhibition. Okay, it doesn't come with a sort of resource pack for schools work. It's not preceded by any consultation with the communities for whom this artwork is intended to benefit. We are supposed to be the beneficiaries of this work because it is supposed to challenge racism and push that debate forward. But without any consultation with said communities, this predominantly white institution, with its all-white funding board, as I say, with no input from any black and ethnic minority communities, has made this critical error. And they're the ones that should carry the blame and the responsibility for it. And it's curious that this discussion is centering around as though the black community doesn't have a right to engage in democratic protest.
But you also suggested that had the right people been engaged in the process of procuring and curating this exhibition, that it could have been held at a potentially different venue. Would you have supported that?
No, I think the work as it stands is offensive. And so unless the artist in those pre-negotiations and the Barbican was susceptible to hearing our concerns and amending the presentation, amending the exhibition, the tableau as it were, then I sense that we would still have objected to the show in its current form. And can we say that this show has been objected against in other places in Europe? In Berlin, the show was stormed by an organisation called Stage Watch. Such was the outrage. In South Africa, we've been told that this enjoys the blessing of South African artists and supported by the Rainbow Nation. But we've been inundated by calls from African artists in Cape Town, the hometown of Brett Bailey, who say that their work is routinely ignored and that their voice is routinely silenced by an overwhelming propensity in the Cape Town arts establishment to favour white men and their commentaries on our condition. So the notion that somehow London is out of sync with the rest of the world is wrong. The notion that black communities' democratic right to protest somehow is trumped by people's right to freedom of speech is clearly wrong in any intellectual or moral sense. And the actions of the Barbican in being an institutionally racist organisation is the real cause of what we now see as the contention around this play.
Manik, would you like to respond?
I think with regards to artistic freedom and freedom of speech, it is a hard fought for right. And we know that through civil rights movements and through the anti-slavery movements of the 19th century, that freedom of speech were essential to the victory of ordinary people. Now, your argument, Jasper, is that that freedom of speech is only here for the privileged few. I would disagree with that. I think, if we look at what happened to the Barbican earlier this year, where a grime event was stopped by the police under Form 696, we can see that if you start to erode freedom of association and freedom of expression and speech, that's what's going to happen. I think the unfortunate situation with Exhibit B was that the police do not want to get involved in a race issue. They don't want to be seen defending art. And I think what the police did was to put in considerable amounts of pressure on the Barbican to stop the run of the show for the next few days. I would have hoped that by the time I arrived on Saturday that I would have the right to go and see Exhibit B.
Well, I mean, my response to that is, first of all, the black community doesn't understands well that we are censored every day. The grime event that you talk about is an urban form of, it's inspired by the black community and now shared by lots of youth in London. Black events of all sorts are censored, curtailed, stopped. Institutionalized racism and the culture of that means that censorship in this sort of liberal democracy where all citizens are treated equal before the law doesn't exist for black people. We lived in a dual reality in this society where some have the privileges and claim the right of freedom of speech, and some are never given that right in the first place. And I think, so we understand the nature of censorship. To suggest that the police, the Metropolitan Police, is somehow shy of dealing with black communities is so bizarre as to be, unbelievable, really. The stop and search figures, the number of black men dying in police custody, all of these issues point to a Metropolitan Police Service that is quite happy executing operational racist policing policies and having racially profiled black communities. I think that's our colleague in the room is misguided and misunderstands the black condition in London. London is a separate country even from the rest of the United Kingdom, much less the rest of Europe. We have a long history here of fighting racism. The black community's view of racism in this country is very sophisticated due to that long experience of being offered the liberal dream of being equal citizens in a first-class democracy, only to be relegated to third-class citizens, having the quality of their lives eroded by racism.
Lee, do you think then that the event at the Barbican and the petition for it to be closed and not to go ahead because it was deemed as racially offensive highlights other issues within the city? So in some way, art is almost doing its job at highlighting other social issues.
Well, if it only was. I mean, artists are a bit like, the reality is that when you look at the arts world in London, it is less representative than the City of London. It's less representative than Metropolitan Police Service. The Minister of Arts, whose name escapes me, recently called a meeting with all arts organisations bemoaning the fact that in the arts and cultural sector, black representation is going down, not up, and wanted to know what people in the industry were going to do about ensuring we had adequate representation. So it does speak about and reflect the broader issues of racism in society. But there is no special place for arts to be had in that, because when you look at the profile of people working in arts organisations, it is massively, overwhelmingly white, with black and African and Asian and other minority groups making up a very small percentage of that overall total. Now, if a Tory government recognises that in relation to the arts world, one wonders when the arts world is going to wake up and have a proper conversation that is informed by the reality of the power dynamics of racism and the reality of institutionalised racism on the lived experience of black communities, and take that seriously by getting its own house in order. Had it done so, we may not be here.
The arts is not the most greatest paid profession in London. I think people who engage with it do it because they are fans. They love the arts, and that's means a lot of other sacrifices that one makes financially and lifestyle and so forth. Now, I think that as a profession, it's a very it's a specialist one. You can't a particle physicist is a specialist profession as much as working as a curator or as a programmer is, and why our diverse kind of society may not be kind of going into those professions, that's something that needs to be explored further. I quite agree with you there, Jess Lee. But in terms of what's on offer in London, I think London is one of the greatest cities in terms of as a global cultural capital. And, only this month, I literally counted about half a dozen exhibitions featuring black artists of African descent exhibiting. Currently, we have to just be more active about engaging with the arts, and that's something that, from a working class background that I came from, I decided to do. There was no kind of support by my parents to do that. It's something I chose to do because I had a great passion for it, and I think anyone who has a great passion for the arts will find their way through it in the professions, on boards as well as in senior positions.
But obviously, if you can draw on something positive from this, as a campaigner for race relations, what would it be?
Well, we wrote to prior to the demonstration, we in discussion with the Barbican, because what we said to their board and their chair, Sir Nicholas Kenyon, is that what we need is a strategic discussion about how we take this issue forward, about your lack of representation, your failure in relation to equality and diversity, how we can make that better. What should Barbican outreach work look like? The fact that you've got artists being brought in from African American and African and people from all over the world, India, is absolutely great. But you don't seek to mask the fact that you have no internal commitment to equality in your home city by having a sort of roster of artists that are drawn in from out the world. What about the youth here in Britain who need artistic platforms? We spoke earlier about the issue of grime and the censorship in relation to that. So we did offer them a way forward. We did say that after the demonstration, we were happy to organise black and ethnic minority artistic groups with an interest in the matter to come together with the Barbican to have a discussion about what a new framework for arts could look like that could seek to improve matters and take issues forward. And the only reason that hasn't happened is because the Barbican was insistent on relying on a racist trope which seemed to suggest that we were the sort of equivalent of the ISIS book-burning rabble mob of violence-threatening black people. That is so stereotypical as, again, to compound the original offence. So we're desperate for a broader conversation about the strategic issues. But I'm afraid that the Barbican, in relation to ways it's sought to handle these matters, has really confirmed for us its complete incapability with its current board to enter into any sort of meaningful discussion. Now, we intend to take the discussion forward with others who have a much more progressive view, a much more open view to these matters. And over the next weeks and months, we'll be announcing initiatives to take that forward. In the meantime, really, we're calling on the people of Russia and the people of Paris and others to look at our petition. I know that there is a French petition mobilised in relation to these matters at the Exhibition B tour hitting Paris. I know that we've already alerted our people in America in relation to this particular exhibit. So this will be a global discussion, I've no doubt. But we're more than happy to learn the lessons from it and have those discussions going forward here in the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, the Barbican seem a lot less keen than we are.
Well, I think what is worrying is that the closure of Exhibit B, I think, is a sign of the times. It's a sign of the times of a more censorious approach to culture. We saw it with the Rushdie affair. We saw it 10 years ago in Birmingham with the play by the Sikh playwright Gurdeep. Sorry, I forgot her surname, but where the Birmingham Rep was having to consult the Sikh community about this play, and then eventually it was closed down by the Sikh community. Now, what we're going to see, I think, if the arts sector is going to have to consult every community when it decides to put on a non-white subject-based play or exhibition, we are going to see almost a kind of equivalent of the British Board of Film Censors in operation from various communities. And that is going to stifle artistic expression. It's going to create a much more safe, conventional, risk-averse culture. And this is what's going to start to happen. I'm a bit worried about what Lee has just said about talking to various other arts institutions, almost as some kind of committee to either approve or make recommendations. I don't think that is right or good for art or culture in this country or anywhere else in the world.
Can I just say
that
the artwork that we're talking about is a contentious artwork by the Barbican's own definition, and that the issue is not consultation around artworks per se, although I expect all contentious artworks to be in some senses informed by the communities to whom they're the backdrop for, or the target of, or the beneficiaries for. But the fact that the Barbican remains, it seems to me incredible that we have a 99.9% group of white people determining anti-racist art, and our colleague doesn't seem to think that that's an issue, except in the most sort of mildly liberal way. It is the fundamental reason why we've ended up in this position. Nobody's talking about a board who checks off all the artwork, but where there is deeply contentious artwork, you'd expect in a multicultural city that the Barbican could rely on its relationships with black communities to check with them in an informed way about what they thought about these things. So it's not a matter of routine censorship, and it's intellectually dishonest to suggest that that's what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that the Barbican should have a stable, ongoing relationships with its black communities, a part of which could be the referral and consultation with such communities when deeply contentious pieces of art do come along. And I think that's sensible for any multicultural community, because offence can be caused, and it's important that institutions are alive to the sensitivities of those communities who they're supposed to represent. We talk about all white management groups as if it's the normative, as if it's absolutely non-problematic. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. Who decides what is anti-racist art? Who decides what is art that moves the debate about racism forward? Who decides that?
Well, Lee, I think artists themselves will define what their work is about or trying.
So the audience has no part in that.
No, the audience is the person, are the individuals that will voluntarily read the book or go and see the play or buy that ticket. Yeah,
but who determines what anti-racist art is?
I don't like the term of anti-racist art.
Well, that's what this is claimed to be, Exhibit B.
I think the Exhibit B was a work about empire and racism and that legacy and that history.
It was challenging racism.
It was challenging.
It's anti-racist art. I mean,
it was challenging racism. It was about racism.
So who determines what racism is and how it's to be challenged?
Well, I think that's up for discussion in terms of
black people decide what's racist, like women decide what is sexist. Surely.
Well, I disagree with you there.
Well, we'll have to disagree, because any time that white people start to define what anti-racism is, we're in big trouble, and that's how the Barbican got themselves into this problem.
There is a kind of mutual relationship that goes on between individuals. Now, if you want to talk about, kind of wider societal or community forces, that's a different thing. But with regards to Brett Bailey, his relationship with the performers and his relationship with the programmers that puts his work on, that is, I think, without a doubt, a dialogue. It's not dominated by one voice over another.
It isn't?
No, I mean you need to read the statements from the 13 actors.
I read the statements from the 13 actors, but I also read and met with 130 actors who walked away from the play because they felt it was racist and didn't want to take part in it. But that never seemed to find itself into the public discussion, but is an actual fact. So there was very many more people in opposition to this than were supporting it. both black and white, because many of the 23,000 people on our petition were white people who came to exactly the same conclusion after explanation as we did.
I'm going to have to leave it there.
That just shows the diversity of both black and white people in London, and that's a healthy thing.
Absolutely, we've got a stronger sense of anti-racism in London than most other countries in the world,
and many other people who were aghast about the closure of Exhibit B and the censorship.
Yeah, well, they're the same people who are not aghast at a 60% unemployment rate of black youth in the city, or the rate of stop and search, or the rate of black men dying in police custody. So they're entitled to their liberal outrage, but we'd like a little bit more balance in terms of human rights and black people's rights in this country, because we don't see this outrage when our rights are trampled on a day-to-day basis.
Lee, we have to. I know.
Keep the tape running.
That's where the anti-racist movement needs to focus on. It is about.
It's been a great discussion. Anyway, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
I'd like to thank both my guests, Lee Jasper and Manik Govinda. Thanks for listening.